Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I am here with Terence Tang, and he's an amazing calligrapher, letterer. And look, I've got his shirt on. It looks backwards to me. Does it look backwards to you?
It's the right side for me.
Okay, well, everything else is backwards. Anyway, I'm excited to have everybody in the chat, and I'm excited to get started. I had a ton of questions for Terence. I'm going to let him tell his story a little bit. He was a web designer, and then he just like packed it up and said, no. I mean, I think you did some planning, right? Before you just quit your web design job.
Yeah, there was a little bit of planning, but really it just kind of all materialized in the span of just a few months. So I've been working in a corporate design setting for about 12 years now. And I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that because they don't realize how old I actually am. But yeah, I've been working corporate for about 12 years, and I rediscovered lettering at when I went to Circles conference. And I had always loved lettering when I was a kid. I just didn't really know that it was a thing. Like I would always just draw random things. Like I would make my own comics and create characters and give them names and letter their names. And like my friend group, we created a name with all of our, the first letters of all our last names. And I made this little goofy logo out of the name of our group. Shout out to Thak. So I always loved lettering, but I rediscovered it recently, like a couple of years ago. And yeah, and I just realized.
Just a few years ago, that's it?
Yeah, probably 2013. Yeah, right after my wife and I got married, actually, which is, she still gives me a hard time to this day because she's like, why couldn't you have gotten into calligraphy before the wedding? I'm like, sorry, that's how it goes.
Come on, let's get married so I can get on to this calligraphy then.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, well, tell us a little bit. So you actually went to design. Did you go to design school for web design?
No, I actually went to film school.
Oh, that's right.
I graduated with a film degree, and I actually took some web design classes on the side, and I was just kind of playing around in Photoshop just for fun. And when I graduated, I looked at my demo reel for video, and I was like, this is terrible. I'm never going to get a job. I'm not going to work for Pixar like I wanted to. I'm never going to direct the next blockbuster movie. So let me go this other route. I have some web stuff that I can actually show people. So let me just try to be a web designer. And I ended up doing web design and graphic design for a really, really long time.
So 12 years you worked in the web kind of field.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was in the medical industry because in Houston, I'm in Houston, by the way. So the medical field is one of the big ones here, aside from oil and gas. So I ended up in the medical field doing graphic.
I thought you said boiling gas. And
boiling.
I was like, what? There's a big boiling gas industry? That seems... Okay,
well,
anyway,
I mean,
oil and gas.
Oil and gas, yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
Did web design and kind of fell into graphic design. I was actually surrounded by a lot of talented designers at my job. So I would do the really annoying thing. Don't ever do this to people. I stood behind them while they were working and designing things, and I would just watch them in Illustrator and like do stuff. I realize now how annoying that must have been. I learned so much from these people. You guys know who you are if you're watching.
So then how many jobs did you have as a web designer?
I had about 3. So I actually worked for a bank first, and then our little group split out and tried to make it as an agency, and that didn't work out. So then I landed in the medical field, doing the web design.
This is a question I didn't put on the sheet, but I always find this is fascinating. So for entrepreneurs, I usually, so people who have are like, yeah, let's just do this. I'm going to do this. Like usually have some sort of entrepreneur in their family because they kind of set the stage. Like, and you know what it is. Is there an entrepreneur in your immediate family?
Yes. My dad was a restaurateur, and I actually have a lot of like uncles and like distant uncles. Like a lot of people in my family were in the restaurant business, owning their own restaurants, and some still are. So
So it was ingrained to you. You knew what it was going to be like, because I think that some people can, and I don't know if that's what you were in a group. Did those other people not understand what an entrepreneur was, or was it just not a right fit? Or you don't have to talk about it. You can say rooster if you don't want to say it.
I'm not sure what you mean. Like what do
you? So if it's a group, say it's you and Jimmy and Bobby, and Jimmy and Bobby they'd always just had a real job.
Oh, okay.
But you understood about like people in your family being entrepreneurs and what it took to do, and maybe that's why it didn't work, or it was just Jimmy and Bobby both were entrepreneurs. They didn't get along.
No, I just think generally it was something that was kind of downplayed. It was just kind of, it was always told to me to kind of go the safe route and get a real job and just kind of essentially coast through life and, retire at 65. And
because it's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Right. And, when you have a corporate job, it's stable and you have the benefits and all that. And it is true to a certain degree, but I think that was always told to me as the more secure, the more safe way to go. So all these thoughts in my head of starting my own thing, it just seemed ridiculous for me to even try. So I never did.
Hey, I'm on my show. Okay. I heard them knocking and I locked it today because last time they came in, this guy's like, there's an air conditioning problem. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So, all right. So 12 years and then what happened that you were like, I can't do this anymore? And it was before you got married? No, after you got married. It was right before James came.
Yeah. So I worked at one company for 7 years and I was basically dying inside because this company, like it became apparent that after I had learned everything that I sought out to learn, they did not intend on giving me any sort of opportunity to grow anymore. So I was just sitting there for like 2 years, just kind of rotting away. And, I thought this was what life was like. I mean, people just landed a job and they go to work and they just sit there, day to day. And it was just eating away at me. I wanted to do something more meaningful. And I finally got another job at another company. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me because that company, it was the complete opposite. They gave me complete creative freedom. They were very encouraging. And they sent me to Circles Conference, which is where I rediscovered lettering. So if I hadn't landed at that job and met those people and gotten the freedom that I did, I would not be here.
But you were still dying inside, in a way.
In a way, yeah, because once I realized that, so this new job, when I got there, like the first year of the job, I kept telling myself, man, this is like my ideal job. It's stable. I have creative freedom. And, I really thought that I was going to retire there. And after a while, after like kind of going to circles and looking around at the landscape and seeing the stuff that people were doing, I was like, man, I really just want more. Like I doing the internal client work that I was doing, it just wasn't satisfying. It was frustrating. And I was like, I got to find a way to get out of client work because I really don't like it. And I just want to do my own thing. I want to make my stuff and somehow make a living with that. So I think that kind of seed just kind of started growing. So,
all right. So you, did you discuss this with them? If they've been always like, take the safe route, it's hard to be your own, own your own business.
It's funny. I was the most nervous about telling my parents because obviously first I talked to my wife about it and I was like, I want to do this thing. My Instagram account is growing and it's kind of validating what I think I can make happen. And she was like, you know what, if we're going to do this, we should do it now. Like, go for it. And I was like, sweet. Now I got to figure out a way to tell my parents somehow and not have them freak out. And I told my mom first, and surprisingly, she was just really like supportive. And she told me, I guess maybe it was because by the time I told her, I was already in my 30s, and I had worked in the corporate setting for so long, and I just wasn't happy, and she could tell that I wasn't happy. So I think she saw it as an opportunity for me to actually do something that I care about, and she was behind it, and she told my dad, and my dad was like, well, I mean, my dad was like, I started a business. His grandfather owned a business. I mean, let's just see what happens.
So is everybody in Houston, or did you live somewhere else and you moved to Houston?
No, I was born and raised here, and pretty much everyone is here.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't like you had to like go to Kansas and tell your parents you were starting.
No.
Okay.
No. I just like had lunch with my mom one day.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So I forgot another question that I have to ask you, because you have a ton of shoes behind you.
Yes.
And I think I read something, or I saw you answered this one time, but you do have a lot of shoes.
I do.
And so you want to tell people a little bit about that, or why you have so many shoes? Because this is your office.
So yes,
and
this
you're
is
not in a closet.
Let me see if I can actually aim down. So yeah. These are some of my shoes. This is like my daily rotation of sneakers, actually. And most of them are all the same type. They're all Nike.
Brian White just said, whoa.
Yeah,
Anyways.
So clearly I have a slightly unhealthy obsession of sneakers. So I'm a sneakerhead, for people who know the term. And yeah, I've been collecting probably since maybe 06, but ever since like high school, I've been obsessed with sneakers. Like
wear them.
I wear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wear them. And it was funny because I would actually come home from high school and I would get the sneaker catalogs in the mail, and I would open them up and I'd be like, oh man, look at this design. And I would sit there and I would draw my own design. And I would say, hey, if I designed this shoe, I would do it differently like this. And I actually had sneaker designs. And that was one of the jobs that I wish I had pursued, is to be a sneaker designer. But by the time I realized it was a real thing, it was probably a little too late.
It's never too late. You could still do it. But
now they have programs for kids to design sneakers and come up in the industry. So
wow.
It'd be an uphill battle for me to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So so Carlos said, can you imagine if he had more than 2 feet? So Carlos is an illustrator, and I can just imagine that's an illustration you need to do. Like Terence with like, I don't know how many pairs. Is this the only room you have shoes in, or do you have another closet that you keep?
There's another room. Yeah. There's another room, but it's slowly dwindling because I'm actually selling off a lot of the shoes to generate capital for the business. So
you had this investment. There's a thing with shoes. Like I had a student, he would buy shoes that came out, but they weren't even his size. So he wouldn't wear them. They were in the box. He would sell them, he's like, this is an investment. And I'm like, really? 10 shoes? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you can't even wear those.
Some of them, as soon as you buy them, the value goes up 300, 400%. And you could just turn around and sell it right away.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I saw Mike Jones was at a sneaker con with his kids. So
yeah,
ask Mike, he'll know.
Yeah. It is really amazing. And it's a whole kind of niche world, I think, that some people didn't know about it.
It's fun, and it's also very unhealthy.
So Eric says that he sees Tinlin sneakers in the future, and then Deidre said she would totally purchase a pair. And
I surely hope so. Yeah,
that would be cool.
I really want to design my own sneakers one day. It would be so much fun.
Then you should do it.
Yeah, I will.
All right, so
I'll get there.
We're still on number 2. So
yeah, no.
No, that's okay. Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the hardest thing to walk away from having a full-time job? Did your dad do okay when you told him?
Yeah, he was fine. He was fine with it. But although I still don't really think he knows what I'm doing. But I would say the hardest thing to walk away from was the people at the job. Because at this new company, the team that I worked with, like, they were all really great people. And it was really fun to be around them every day. So, just to to feel like I was kind of letting everyone down by leaving, like that was probably the hardest part for me, because I genuinely like those guys.
Do you miss being around? Because sometimes I think if you're working at home so much, it can be isolating for me. And I know that like you're more of an introvert and I'm
Hmm.
not. But do you feel that too?
A little bit. I will go out to a coffee shop every now and then and just get around people and change the scenery.
Hmm.
But for the most part, there are, I have plenty of like chat rooms and group chats and stuff to just keep me busy throughout the day so that it feels like I'm not by myself.
Right. And you have like a group, like you have a Slack group with some of
Yeah.
the people that are in the chat, Scotty
Yeah.
um, and Eric and a bunch of other people, right? Colin. And so that
Yeah.
you guys kind of have this team that's kind of built.
Yes. Yeah. They kind of became my new coworkers in a sense.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think they would probably all say that the same as well. Um, so how did you tell your boss or your coworkers? I guess that's how did you get over that hurdle? Because I do think it's kind of like you're disappointing them because you're going to do this other thing. So sometimes people will hold on. It's kind of like a relationship, they'll hold on because they just don't want to break up. It's never the right time. It's right before Valentine's or right before
Hmm.
their birthday or whatever, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So how was that? How did you deal? Did you just make a clean break and you're like, hey, we'll meet for lunch next week?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I had two conversations, one with my immediate supervisor and then one with the director. And those were two of the hardest conversations I've ever had in my life. I mean, I was shaking, nervous, pulling them into the conference room and telling them that I was going to try out this adventure, that who knows how it was going to play out. And um, I guess in my head, it could have gone so many different ways, but I'm really fortunate that they were both really, really supportive, and they're still very supportive. And I made sure to let them know that it's really because of them that they helped give me the confidence to do, to even attempt what I'm doing. So
Right.
I really appreciate, all of them.
That's cool. Okay, so now we'll go on to number three. So really, it was Instagram and having that following that really
Hmm.
gave you the confidence, right? And it wasn't like one day and then you were doing it for a little bit and then bam, you just had a ton of followers. It was something you were growing. And so this is a step I think some people maybe are missing. So this is a commitment you had to make to yourself to be able to publish and post things on a regular basis in
Hmm.
a style that was more your style, right?
Well, honestly, it wasn't something that I kind of purposely built.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I started it as just kind of a way to show my practice and show people what I was doing and just kind of catalog the progress. And as I kept going with it and more people jumped on board and, the following grew, and I would submit to certain contests and I would kind of place in them here and there. And I was like, wait, this could maybe turn into something. And then that's when I started being a little more intentional with it and posting every day. And that's when it really started to pick up. And then that's when I showed my wife and I was like, hey, look, this is actually happening.
So when posting every day, did you find your sweet spot? Were you doing 7 days a week, 5 days a week, or?
I tried doing 7 days a week, but then I found that certain days were kind of pointless to post because just people weren't paying attention those days. So
Right.
I basically did 5 or 6 days a week, and I would basically come home from the day job and immediately jump on, the sheet of paper and just start doodling. Or I eventually started recording
Mm-hmm.
videos of myself doing the calligraphy and just started getting more adventurous with that. So it got to a point where I could record a session and edit and put out the video in about an hour's time. And it just became very, I got into a routine of doing it, and it became very quick.
And so it was really about an hour. You would get home, you would do this, then you would go have life.
Well, I would still continue to draw other things. Like even after I posted something, I would keep playing. And my wife was like, "You're just on that pen and paper all the time. Are you ever going to get off? Like,
It's like what my husband says about my phone.
yeah. She's like, can we watch a movie or something? Like, can you step away from that? And I'm like, it's really hard to. I can't, because I love it so much. I just wanted to experiment with everything and get better. So I was on it as much as I could, as much as she would allow me to.
Yeah, understandable. But it's like you said, you were playing, right? But then you were just sharing that play, that you weren't trying to get followers. You were just sharing your process, which I think is a really good, a good reason for doing that. So
yeah. And it's funny because I feel like now that I'm trying to get followers, it's not happening as much.
Do you feel like you're doing something different now?
I'm sharing a different kind of content, because now I'm trying to sell products instead of just show calligraphy process and whatnot. I mean, I'm still doing a little bit of that, but for the most part, yeah, it just, like when you try to find something, you can't find it, but the minute you stop looking, like, it just pops up.
Right.
That's kind of like with the followers. Like when I wasn't even trying to get them, they were all coming on board. And now that I'm trying, I still get them here and there, but it's tougher.
Well, I think it is. I think you do have to give something away on a regular basis. And so Eric just shared his favorite piece of yours from 36 Days of Type. So thank you for sharing that. And it's a YouTube. So thank you. And I don't know if it's the same. Yeah, it's the same one I have for later, but we'll share it again. And I have it for the show notes. But why Instagram? Why do you think it was so important to see the Instagram more so than YouTube for followers, you think?
I think at the time that I just started doing it, Instagram was kind of the new thing, and there happened to be a ton of lettering artists jumping onto Instagram, like just at that moment. And I think just the popularity of the technique and the medium, it just kind of elevated it to a level that I couldn't get anywhere else. I mean, YouTube, I had seen some things, obviously, Matt Rigotis, he has a lot of stuff on YouTube and that I was looking at, but he was basically the only guy that was doing it at the time. And but Instagram, like, people were just, lettering artists and calligraphers were blowing up on Instagram, and they still are.
It was the right time, right? It's kind of like the Wild West. If you were out there, you could really, and I think that's still how it is. I think we are kind of determining how we can do business on Instagram and how we can grow audiences. But a lot of times designers, or maybe anybody, doesn't realize how important growing an audience is. So you have to have people who are going to come back and want content from you, and they're getting something from you as much as, and not necessarily product, but you're giving them something, and there is this exchange of inspiration or advice or something, which I think is nice that you were doing a little bit of both. You were doing inspiration visually on Instagram, and then you were also kind of, again, doing visual on YouTube. But there are other parts of the YouTube stuff that you were able to share, I think. All right, so Eric says it's exactly like the Old West or Wild West. You know what I mean? All right, so this is one of my questions, and we already couldn't wait, so I asked it before we went live. How much of your income for Tinland Studios is based off of freelance work, and then how much is selling products that you make? Because I like to know percentages, and I love the answer. So
I am currently not doing any freelance work at all. And if I do take on a freelance project, it's pro bono for somebody that, like, is a friend of mine or someone I just want to help out, or maybe barter services with. But right now, 0 of my income is from freelance. I'm 100% designing my own art and selling my products.
That's awesome. And that's super hard though, right? So having that audience prior was critical, right? So what was your audience number wise? And I guess, things are always changing, but what was it at where you said, hey, honey, I think I can make this jump?
I think probably when I hit like 10K, And really not just the number of 10K, but how quickly it got there.
Mm-hmm.
That I was just like, I think I can make something happen with this. And I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do, because I'd always liked obviously I like buying products. I mean, I got all of them back here. So I've always liked the purchasing and packaging experience of opening up something new and just getting that new thing and just like this is awesome. You know, like I've always loved that experience. And of course I love lettering. So I was like, well, let me combine the two and see what I can do.
Right. So, and you do all your own packaging as well. So, and you're putting it together, you're scoring it. You have videos on that too. I think those are some from the vlog.
Yeah.
And I think that you must like that part. That's more like production, and it can be sort of factory work when you have so many, if you're giving away 500 or something, or you're packaging ready for something like that. But then there's a lot of other, like the lighting that you learned in film school, you're able to use for your photography and shots. I think that those are some things that make your shots really powerful. Is some of that stuff that you learned, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I talked to some of the high school kids in the camp that I work with, and they're so afraid to try something and feel like it's going to be a waste of time. And I look back now, and I could easily say that I wasted my time in film school, or I could say I wasted my time, working at that company for 7 years. But I learned a lot of valuable stuff during that time, and I'm bringing all of that together now. So it's like I'm bringing in the photography that I picked up as a hobby. I'm bringing in the video from school. I'm bringing in lighting. I'm bringing in random things like working with vendors and, production skills, all the things that I've learned. I'm bringing it all together right now. And you never know, what kind of skills are going to help you out in the future. So nothing is a waste of time. It's never a waste of time.
Absolutely. So Fabio says the combination of your experiences makes you who you are today. Absolutely. So I watched all the vlogs. You had a blog. You have a blog. I really like seeing the behind the scenes, family stuff, James. And I love that you share your struggles. So you, more of an introvert, now have to be a salesman, and you have to, and I want to kind of talk about that. So you have this product, you want to sell it, but you don't want to be salesy, and you really, that is really important to you, not to come off as that. So how do you wrap? Because you do need people to buy, but you also, that it's a struggle, right?
Yeah. And it took me a long time to figure out, but what I've started doing now is to kind of wrap it all into showing the process of everything that I create, and kind of letting my passion for everything ooze through it all. And I feel like that in itself tells a story. And, the lettering phrases that I choose have a story. So I think the story and the whole process and everything, like I'm letting that kind of thing sell the product, and not actually actively say, hey, look, I have a notebook now, which I had done before, but it just was not effective.
Right. So it's instead, and I think this is important to kind of reiterate. So instead of just saying, here's this, you're now actually letting the message be the story. And then this is just something with that message. And so it's kind of like a token, like for when you go to a trip and you had, a memento. Now this becomes a memento of the story in a way, right?
Yeah. And actually that's interesting, because I didn't realize that until now, that when I do go on trips, I like to bring back, like I'll go to a sneaker store, in Boston or something, and I'll pick up a sneaker there, and I still have that sneaker, and I have the story associated with it. And I think that's kind of the experience that I want to bring to people, is to associate the story with a product that resonates with people.
All right. So I think that it is something you have to figure out, and you are giving content still. So I think that that's another way of not just being so salesy. So right. You're telling a story, and I think that's the video. You're always telling a story, right? So that's something that is innate in you.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have to make money and you have to get the word out, you have to share what you have. I think we've already kind of, anyway, I guess I should have not had that as two separate lines. Anyway, so you're building your store and you were, I guess you had to dip into savings because you quit your job, but you had done some savings. And I think it was either 6 months before James arrived or James was 6 months old. There was something with the 6 months.
Yeah, I had about 6 months of savings, okay. And that was just like on the surface, like just in case. And then I had other savings that I could dip into, you know, if I really needed to. So I had a pretty good cushion, and I'm actually still working off of all of that right now. Like we're
over a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and we're
cool.
basically single income right now. And we do have some support from my parents and Jen's parents, and maybe not monetary support, but like they'll help watch James a day if I need them to or something like that. And just everyone is very supportive and helping out in their own ways. So we're very fortunate.
That's amazing. And that's great. And it really does help. Like if your parents hadn't been on your side, I think it could have been more, they might not have, you might have, that emotional support is just as important as the financial support, I think.
Definitely.
All right. So, and building the store seemed like you might have thought it took longer than it would have taken. Now, part of that is because you're a web designer, I think, right?
Yeah. My web design skills are very outdated, but I can poke around in HTML and make things happen if I need to.
So when you're working and so how long did it take you from when you quit to when you launched the store?
About 6 months. I quit like the 1st of July, and I launched during the new year. So yeah, it was about 6 months.
So do you think that part of that, the struggle was just because it was during the holidays and, you know, people buy different at different times, and it's also, or were you building up more, you know, product?
I was really just taking care of a lot of the business side of things, like getting everything set up and trying to figure out, you know, like getting the website up and making sure I had the correct, you know, shopping platform, and, you know, really just trying to make sure everything was right before I really just started trying to sell anything, because I mean, it took a lot longer than I thought it would. And by the time I was kind of ready, the holidays hit, and I was like, yeah, I could sell during the holidays, but then, you know, you get the holiday shipping and things get lost. And I don't know if that's something that I can deal with right now, if it's something that I launch with, and then now I have to deal with people's stuff getting lost. Like I just kind of waited it out. I was like, all right, forget it. I'm not going to launch before Christmas. I'm going to wait it through, and I'm going to start first of the year. I'm just going to launch, and then I'll have a fresh start from there.
So 6 months, do you think that that's a reasonable amount of time if you were telling somebody that wanted to do the same thing, like give it that much? You think you might can do it in 3, but you probably can't.
To kind of do the same thing that I'm doing?
Well, if they were trying to start selling a product of their own, and they were having to do it from scratch, like create their own site,
mm-hmm.
but maybe they already had products.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have all the packaging, everything done? You were just waiting, and okay, yeah. So you had to do all that stuff too.
Yeah, it all had to get done. And I mean, really, I could say that, you know, 3, 4, 5 months was a good amount of time, but like really that time did not include building an audience. Building an audience, I spent like 2 years doing that. So if you don't have an audience, then who are you going to sell to?
Right.
You know, you have to start with that first. So.
And that was really what you did while you had your other jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was such a time commitment as daily. Right?
Yeah.
Because you were also building your skill.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was a lot of time. Yeah. And there were some conversations with my wife that had to be had, but you know, I learned the hard way that I was being an idiot, and I needed to focus a little less on lettering and a little more on the family.
I think we've all maybe not for lettering, but whatever our side project is, I think it is really important to make sure our spouses know that we really do want to spend time with them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the stay humble.
Okay.
And thank you for making a women's t-shirt. First off, so I love it. And it's like a great soft, and I love this. And when you were talking about the Houston Chinese youth, so it has embrace. Can you see this? I don't want you to see my tummy. So, anyway, it says embrace failure. And there's people walking by like shirt up. So anyway, not very far. I mean, hopefully I won't get killed on YouTube this time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so one side has your brand, and then the other side, it's like this hidden. And that was one of the there are multiples. It's not always I might get another shirt and it might say a totally different things or random, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And these are the kind of little details that I love to put into my products. Is like, I want to make sure that everyone gets a unique experience, or as unique of an experience as possible. And so the hem tags, there's 3 different sayings, and you get one random one. And that's going to continue for the next line, the next collection that's releasing soon. So going to keep that going.
Cool. I love that. So, so I have another, this is a business question. So I want to get it before you get to stay humble. Okay. So one of the things that I learned from the vlog, which I think is a great kind of business sense. So somebody is also selling products like you. So you're trying to give advice. One thing you learned was, hey, somebody might want a poster and a t-shirt. So I have to figure out packaging and shipping so that you're not doing 2 items, right? So is there anything else and you might explain that a little bit better than I did.
Is there anything else? Sorry, you kind of stopped your question.
Did I cut out? So was there anything else you learned, like packaging wise, or little things that you're like, why didn't I think of that?
I think that was probably the biggest one, is that, like you said, like I had print, and I had a shirt, and I had notebooks, and I had packaging for each of the 3 of those if somebody buys one thing.
Right.
But then an order came in, someone bought a poster and a shirt, and I didn't have any packaging to fit that. And then someone bought like a notebook and, a print. And I was like, well, that's not too bad, but it's still not ideal. I didn't have the packaging to accommodate for the combinations of things. And that was a really silly realization for me that I needed to figure that out. And those are the kind of random things that just come up. It's just, you don't think of that kind of stuff, and it just comes up, and you just got to deal with it right away.
Right. So you had to kind of rethink some of the stuff that you had already thought was kind of ready to go.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's also being an entrepreneur. You kind of have to, this stuff's going to be thrown at you, and you got to be able to juggle, right?
Yeah. A lot of it is just figuring it out on the fly. I mean, that should be the definition of entrepreneur, is figure it out on the fly. And
also having confidence that you can figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And not just like, I'm going to just fall in a ball on the floor and it'll just go away. So Patrick had a question before, and we have 2 questions. Anonymous viewer asked a question, and then Patrick. So Patrick has a question that says, how do you maintain focus on a project? He gets distracted before I finish a piece, taking it to market, and then it goes into the drawer or on the hard drive to be forgotten. That's a great question.
So I do have quite a few kind of forgotten projects. Like I'll start something and then it just kind of goes away. And I take those to be the projects that don't mean as much to me. I mean, maybe the messaging is not as significant to me, or it may not resonate as much with other people, but the ones that I stick with, those seem to be the ones that, like I stick with them for a reason, because they mean something to me, and I know that they'll mean something to other people too. So I just kind of naturally let that happen. I filter out the ones that don't matter, and maybe they they don't matter at the time, but maybe later on you'll come back to it and you go, okay, I had this experience between then and now this means something to me, and I want to resume it. And, now it'll be something that stays on your front burner. So.
Well, I also think having that connection makes people, they get on board because it also is telling part of their story.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when you do, like, stay humble, which I'm going to let you get to, and then I'll get to this other question. But what was about that messaging? Because I love this. Like, there are some people who I think I need to buy the shirt for, but they would be offended, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about why. Why is this so important to you?
I think so. I've been fortunate enough to meet quite a few of my idols. Like, I'm really into basketball. I mean, sneakers and basketball go hand in hand, and I've met quite a few basketball players that I've looked up to, and some of them are just super nice, really cool people, and some of them could not care less about you. And to look up to someone like that, and then to have that thrown back at you, like, for me, that was a very painful realization. Like, it's almost like this idea that you built up in your mind of this person it's all lies. So it's to be honest, it's heartbreaking. So I just kind of told myself, you know what, I'm never going to get to that, no matter how successful or whatever I get, if I do get successful, that's not going to happen to me. I'm never going to be that kind of person. And I just wanted to have that messaging right from the get-go, just to make sure, just as a reminder, but always to set the tone for everything. Like, you're never above anybody else. Right.
Always growing, always learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never above.
Never.
I think that's terrific. So, has that really resonated with a ton of people? Not just like, oh my gosh, I got to give those people a shirt. Like, because I mean, I really am. I think you should always think of yourself as, treat other people how you would want to be treated, and not, I'm better than them, so they should, entitled, kind of like I'm entitled to something. I mean, you're not entitled to anything. You're not even entitled to the next hour. So, you just got to keep going. So yeah. How have you heard from other people that that's resonated?
I've actually had some pretty deep conversations with people about the meaning behind it. And I mean, it's been pretty amazing to hear, other people's side of the story and what it means to them. I mean, because, a certain phrase or saying may mean something to me, but it could mean something completely different to somebody else. Right. And it could be just as significant to them. And that's what I love about this. It's so much fun to interact with people and find out where they're coming from and how they're digesting your art.
Right. All right. So now we're going to get to this question with anonymous viewer, which is a really sad name for their last name was Viewer and their parents named them Anonymous. So are there, I know, are there any other resources, and I know you get this a lot, example books that you could give for lettering? And also, what's one good tip that you could give in regards to getting better in lettering? What helped you?
I honestly did not digest any books or anything like that. I mean, I looked at a lot of lettering artists that, yeah. I looked at a lot of work from lettering artists that resonated with me. So I study a lot of other people's work and, obviously not copying, but just studying.
What do you mean by studying? So I agree with this, but I want you to break that down for me a little bit.
So I guess if I look at something and I like it, I try to understand what it is about it that I like, as far as just going down to the smallest details. I mean, did they connect this letter to that letter a certain way, or did they use a disconnected letter instead of a connected one, or is it the capital instead of not? I mean, what chances did they take with it, and why does it work? Just kind of explore everything about it.
That's good. So I also think that you get better as you start analyzing type.
Yes.
the more you do, in the beginning you think it's okay, but then you do have to compare to other people. Like, well, how are they doing their lettering? The more you look, I always think of it, I know I've said this before, but we're eating visually. If all you're eating visually is like McDonald's,
Yeah.
I hope McDonald's isn't watching, but if all you're eating is McDonald's, what's going to come out is it going to be only McDonald's. So you have to eat really good hamburgers or really good steaks or something, Ruth Chris steaks. Like that's like $100 meal as opposed to like $2 meal. And so it's about your palate. Your palate gets better the more. So if people looked at your Instagram to see who you follow, that might be a good way for you to be following good people that are eating good visually, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, we're really doing good. I did better about my little things. I'm taking notes and everything.
Awesome.
All right. So it's because I think you're a really good writer. Everything that I read that you had said or you had written back in an interview was really eloquent. It was well written. So why do a vlog? And I know you're a film person, but why do a vlog instead of a blog?
I feel like when I write, I tend to change the kind of person that I sound like. And I just wanted to come off more genuine. So I think vlogging, there's no, like I can sit there and rehearse what I'm going to say over and over, but that would just take forever. So I just said, you know what, this is going to be an opportunity for me to improve speaking and, improve my presence on camera. So let me do that. And, it'll be a good learning experience for me. And and just writing, I do like writing, but it's just a completely different, like, I feel like it's often not really me, like the
so it's
real
more authentic.
Yeah.
Okay. So because it does sound really good. You're a really good writer. Not that you don't sound good on regular. Like, that sounds terrible. Like, wow, she was just killing me on there. That is not what I mean. But I think, so this was like you were doing a weekly vlog. So was it hard? And because they weren't, I don't know, I can't remember how long they were, but it was a good bit of information that was going on. So it was a lot of shots, I can imagine. And then you were putting music. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. Like, I have no idea how Casey Neistat.
I don't know how he does that every day.
I don't either. Every day. And some of them are 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so was it hard to push out content every week?
It was. It really is hard to push out content because there may not be anything exciting going on. Like, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've literally just been sitting here in Illustrator designing things, and that's not camera friendly. Really the time that I was vlogging, it was like around the holidays. There was a lot of things happening, so it was easier to generate content and kind of show what my life was like. And back then, it was still fresh. Like, I was fresh into entrepreneurship, and like I was still trying to figure things out, and I hadn't established a routine yet. So I was learning a lot about myself and about processes and what not to do. So I was sharing all of that stuff in the vlogs. And now that I'm kind of, a little more, deep into it, and I've already figured out what I'm trying to do and where I'm going, and and sitting at the desk most of the time, it's much, much harder to come out with interesting stuff unless I go to Creative Cell.
But I feel like with Casey, he's always doing something. He never is filming himself editing, or he's never in a meeting, and he seems like he goes to a lot of meetings. So it's difficult if you're not interacting. Like, there was one where you were like, I had to take James to the doctor. But I love that. But then, you have to set the camera down, then you and James have to walk back. It's like there's a lot that goes into, and James is probably like, Dad, let's go.
Yeah. He's like, hey.
He's like, in the car seat.
It's like, hello, I'm sick. Doctor.
Y'all were both sick, right?
Yeah, we were.
So that's a huge commitment that you were doing. But it really is. It's more than that hour that you are giving yourself at the end of the day. It takes more time. So now what are you thinking? Are you killing the vlog? Or are you just doing it as more when you're learning and doing something and you have something to say? And I've talked to Scotty like about how he's doing this and how he wants to do this. And it's been really good because anyway.
I think I will continue the vlog, but I'm going to just do it when I have something significant to say. Which could be dangerous because I could be like, oh, I have this to say, and then it just gets pushed to the back burner because I'm working on a collection of products,
Yeah, it's hard when you have commitment. It's better if you have a commitment, but then you have to make something up if you're not. Yeah. And so unless you're living this amazing life that you're always going and doing these things, it's really difficult if you're in your house with your shoes. Right. Like that could be it. Your vlog could be changing your shoes every day.
Pretty much, yeah. I could have a shoe a day vlog.
That's right. You would have a different audience. They might buy your shoes though.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. So with opening the shop, there were many other hats that you were wearing. Photographer, web designer. How often in that 6-month period were you lettering?
Very little in that 6 months. I would say 10 to 15%. Like it was, there wasn't a whole lot of time left for me to actually do any lettering or calligraphy. Like I think you could probably tell if you look at the Instagram account, you can probably tell that, it's pretty steady up until July. And then once July hits, it's like, boom, it just completely comes to a standstill. And there's like one here and there that's like a still photo, not a video.
Right.
It was really hard. It's really hard to keep everything going at once. I'm eventually going to need some help for sure.
Yeah. And it is again about that commitment and doing the thing that got you there. Right. And that you love, because some of that other stuff you don't love, but you have to wear that hat because that's where you are right now.
Right. Like if someone places or if 2 people place an order overnight, for example, and I wake up and I see these 2 orders, it takes me like maybe an hour in the morning to pack up these orders and get them ready to ship out. And, it's an hour and it sounds like a lot. It's just because I'm not getting orders every single day. I don't have the process down to a T. So when an order comes in, I have to go get this thing and do that and put it together and print out the invoice. And like, it's still new to me, it's not automated yet.
Right.
So it takes a lot longer than it should, and it eats up a good chunk of the day. And then there goes an hour or 2 that could have been for, calligraphy,
right,
or something. So just a lot of things like that just come up, and the time is gone.
So I know we're not going to answer all the questions, but my number 9, the must answer question that I'm so glad we at least have time sort of for this. We'll go a little over probably, but you talked about in the vlog how being a dad and having James has made you less introverted. And I thought that was fascinating. So I really want you to explain this.
So this is something that I'm still trying to figure out. I don't really have it fully worked out yet, but I think, so I tend to be someone who cares a lot about what other people think. And I think when James was born, and just to see the way that he looks back at me, to look at him and see him looking back at me, the rest of the world just kind of melts away. And there's nobody else. And I think in some weird way, that kind of gave me the confidence to not care about anybody else, to care less about what people think of me and to just do me. It's just all about me and James and family and this business, and don't worry about everybody else.
Right, because he just loves you for you, and it's amazing to have that love and just to see it. Right. Yeah. That's
so
really.
I love what Patrick says. My kid loves me, so no worries. I love that.
but I think that's really, so you really went from not a salesman to being a salesman. And then I know that has to have confidence. I mean, you are confident in your skills, but it's different to take that. And then I think having James really helped get you to a point where, hey, this is just me. Like he thinks I'm okay,
Yeah.
So anyway, Fabio says that's amazing what little dudes will teach you. So
Yeah, very true.
all right, so there was a second part to this one. Why? Because we're not going to get done with it that quick. Why is it important to step out there? Oh, wait. I do think many designers find themselves in this exact situation, like at a conference or an event, and I want to help them learn what you did without having a kid. If they have kids, we don't have to be like, hey, I got to have a kid. But what would, like, because now you're at a conference and you would just be you.
Yeah.
So and James isn't there, right? So what is it? It's just that you've told yourself what?
Well, I don't know I don't know if I've told myself anything. It's just that he has changed me innately in a way. But I mean, as far as bringing introverts out without having a kid, I mean, I don't know if I can answer that, because honestly, my first circles conference, I did that conference completely wrong. Mm-hmm. I went to the conference and I talked to maybe one or two people the whole time. I was a fly on the wall. I listened to all the talks, and I didn't speak to anybody at all. I didn't introduce myself.
Because why?
I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't feel like I felt like all these other people were way more talented than I was. Mm. And, it was intimidating to approach anybody. And you look around and you see other people having conversations and they're interacting, and you don't want to be the guy to, step in there and go, ha 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 ha, that was a funny joke. And then everyone just kind of like walks away from you. It's hard to know how to approach these people. And yeah, just my first two conferences I did completely wrong, just like that.
So then was your third conference Creative South?
Yes.
So Patrick says he gets hit with imposter syndrome. Hey, man, that is everybody. Uh-huh. Everybody. And if they don't have it, they did it one time, and now they're just like going with it and they don't care. Yeah. In a maybe a good way. Yes, totally a relief to know, but it still kind of feels like, so I used to say, I think everybody has a superpower. Uh-huh. And I used to say, because the S and the W are right, you use the same finger, I think, when you're typing. So it would always say superposer, and I'd be like, that's poser, because that's what it feels like. Yeah. But I don't remember what I was saying. At a conference. So this is why I think it's really important for people there's two things I think you can do at a conference. One is know people who are going, so that you don't be that, so that you're going to feel like you could. Sometimes people just need some other people to be able to talk to somebody new. Yes. You don't need to just be next to these two people the whole time. Yeah. But if you're comfortable and confident, then you could say hey to somebody else and invite them to go to lunch, because there's always going to be somebody that is sitting completely alone, and they just do the stuff and they go back to their hotel, and they do the stuff and they go back to their hotel. But that makes for such a crappy conference. Definitely. Right?
Yeah. And I kind of made it a point to do that when I was at Creative South, is if I saw someone that I knew, that I had spoken to, and they seemed kind of nervous about talking to other people, I would take it upon myself to introduce them to this other person. And it's interesting. It's not really about getting them to meet everybody, but it's just about giving them that little kickstart. Like if you get them talking to this person, then that might just give that person the little confidence they need to approach another person later on. And like that can be completely game changing for them. So
right. So Brandon said, I need to find another fly on the wall so that we can both venture out together. I feel more comfortable if I can find someone who's just as shy as I am. So one thing I would say, Brandon, is you could also find somebody who's more like me, who I'm going to get to know you, and then I'm going to introduce you to some people who I think you would really gel with. And And I think it's just, that could be anybody. And really that's what Terence is doing, but you kind of came with your peeps. I mean, you hadn't ever met Colin in person, but you and Colin had a lot in common. You were in the Slack group together. So I really think, Brandon, it's about finding a community of people now. And some people you can find in this chat group and then go to a conference with them, or find, on Twitter or Facebook or something. You just start a conversation and you'll realize that people are really just pretty real and nice. I remember when I started stalking Ryan Hamrick, I was like, and he responded back to me. I'm like, really? I remember, and I think I've talked to Eric about this, and I know I've talked to Ryan about this, but I mean, I love Ryan. He's so down to earth, but he's an amazing letterer. Mm-hmm. That's how people think about you, Terence, right? And they're like, he responded back to me. One of my alumni was so excited that it was you this week. And Ashley, I'm just calling you out here. It's not really? Ashley. Yes, so not Ashley that you connected. That Ashley loves you too, but Ashley Pierce. That is, you just geek out. He was geeking out over you. And so, Ashley, you should probably reach out to Terence, since now I called you out on it. But it was out of love, right? But it's
say hi.
You think it's great that you're like, really?
That's really I don't even know what to say to that. That's so strange to me still. But that's awesome. Yeah, definitely reach out. I mean, there's you two things can happen. You can reach out to someone and they could be a complete douche, and then you just know, stay humble. Or they could be completely awesome and friendly to you, and then that's just the best thing ever. So,
and it's the connection. Now you've made a new friend. And so it's just like you going up in a conference and then you're laughing, haha, and then they are quiet and treat you bad. You should just be like, great, those are people I don't want to hang out with, and then go to the next people, because there will be your people.
Yes.
It's just clear that those people weren't it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you encounter that, try not to sweat it too much. I mean, I know it's heartbreaking and disheartening to encounter that, but really it's just, you thought someone was, one of your people, and they're not. So Anne said,
Anne is at a university in Virginia, and she said, our students are looking up to you a lot, Terence. And so there's a ton of people. I just think that you do. I think you need to stumble though, right there. I think maybe Eric was being funny or not funny, but I like to stumble. I think you need to fail, right?
Yeah.
Embrace failure.
Embrace failure. Stumbling is part of the process.
Right. Fall forward for sure. Fail forward for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we've totally gone a little bit over, but not too bad. I know we didn't finish, but we did really pretty good.
Awesome.
Any last things about at a conference, what you would do or what you did do, because Creative South was different. So what was different so that you could tell somebody like Brandon, give him encouragement?
What was different at Creative South?
Yeah. How were you different at Creative South?
I think Creative South in itself, the setting and the people and the tone that's set by Mike Jones and the people that run it, it's completely a family atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's unlike any other conference that I've been to, and once you're there, you'll see. I mean, it'll be easier to just reach out and talk to anybody than at any other conference. That's the amazing thing about Creative South. They really make it easy for you to just be yourself and hang out and just not worry about all the the superstardom of designers and all the crazy politics and all that. It's the whole conference is staying humble, essentially.
Yeah, and you can really go talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I talk to people at Creative South that I would have never dreamed of, interacting with. It was mind blowing to me to talk to a lot of these people. I mean, you'll see in the vlog. I mean, I was completely geeking out, but I was trying to keep a straight face. I'm cool. I'm good. It's just Bob Ewing over there. It's all good.
So, but I think it's neat to think because you're that way to somebody else. And I really think you just need to be as loving and open to everyone as you can, especially at something like, because you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
you can do it, Patrick.
You can. And Patrick, Creative South tickets are on sale.
Yes.
And I don't know where you are, Patrick, in the country or in the world. KCMO, Kansas City, Missouri. Sweet. There's another girl, Abby, who comes from Kansas City, but I think she's the Kansas City, Kansas side. But I don't really know for sure. And Brian White's in Kansas, and he came to the conference. Anyway, but Brian's not in Kansas City. I don't know where you are, Brian. Thanks, great t-shirts too. Lawrence. Okay. All right. So another great guy. All right. So you can go to Creative South, creativesouthga.com. Just a plug. I just love it. I'm the volunteer coordinator, and I don't get any money for doing any of that. It's just because I love it. And it's a great conference, right?
Yes.
All right. So when I copied everything, I didn't copy your social media stuff right. So I've been like trying to copy and paste while we've been talking.
Oh, it's okay.
So I want to share a couple of things. So when we were talking about how you grew your Instagram audience and stuff like that, I'm going to share that video again. I know Eric shared it already, but I'm going to share it again.
Cool.
And
thanks, Eric.
There is that one. And then we also, the Stay Humble there's another, for you guys, if you want to get a shirt or a hat. Oh, that was another question. He has sketchbooks. He has tons of cool stickers. So how did you decide what products you were going to sell?
It's really just what I feel like doing. I mean, there's really, I don't have a formula for it at all. I don't go off of whatever happens to be, trending in fashion. I kind of let my mindset and kind of the messaging that's resonating with me at the time steer me in a direction. And the upcoming collection is, it's called the Discovery Collection, and it's all about finding your way and discovering things about yourself. So that's where I'm at now, and that's what the collection's about. So.
Cool. That sounds awesome. All right, so I'm going to share a couple more. I just shared the Facebook link, and then the only one I didn't get was Snapchat. Can you write that one in?
Oh.
Or just tell us what your handle is. Is it just
Tinland? It's probably Tinland Studio.
Studio 10. No.
10. Yes.
Right. Not that there would be two O's. That was silly.
Yeah. Studio.
Anyway, you knew what I meant. So there's Facebook. There's his Instagram, which most of the handles are all Tinland Studio. The one O. Oh, yeah. Studio. And then there's Twitter is the same. And then the YouTube channel for the whole channel is there also. So you can kind of see that. Oh, that's funny, Terrence. You're like, bull. I didn't even say shoot bookers today, so that's just go ahead and say it. Oh yeah, your face swaps with your son. I honestly, when I was trying to tag you in a Facebook post, I was like, I don't think that's him. That doesn't look like him. And I was like, I had to zoom. I was like, forget this. I have to go back, and I had to look to see because I was like, that does not look like him.
He's gonna thank me for those one day. Those are gonna pop up like at significant points in his life, like graduation and his wedding and stuff like that. I'm saving stuff.
But we still have some stuff I wanted to talk about. So I definitely want to talk about how you give back and how you do the community stuff. So maybe we can get you back on.
That'd be great.
Okay, that would be great for me too. Anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out for a little bit late. And if you want to follow me, because I always forget to give this stuff. So if you're listening on the podcast, you can always follow me at rechargingyou.com. That's where you can see all the episodes I've done. I believe this is episode like 186 or 5 or 7 or something. It's pretty far down there. And then you can, I'm looking at my, you can email me at Diane@rechargingyou.com or Diane@designrecharge.org. And then I think that's it. So if you need anything, or if you want to hear something, all my handles are pretty much at Design Recharge. So I'd love to hear from you and see what you're interested in. And next week we have Terence's roommate at Creative South, Colin Tierney, is going to be on. So it's just lettering back to back. And I'm real excited to have him. He's really going to be talking about calligraphy. So if you don't know what that is, hopefully you guys will like really look at it, and he's going to launch something soon as well.
Whoa.
So can't wait to have him on next week. And he was a pretty good roommate, maybe, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was in the vlog.
He was in the vlog.
Every morning.
He had a little cameo in the vlog, yeah.
Anyway, thanks guys for coming, and thank you for tuning in every week. It really makes a difference to me, so thank you. And Terence, just thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks for coming. This was so much fun.
It was. All right. I'll see you guys next week.